Right. So earlier in one of the recordings, Mike started telling us, or it might be before one of the recordings, I don't know. He cuts them up later, and I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, earlier, Mike mentioned to us that during Thanksgiving, which happened recently, he did an informal survey of the people at the Thanksgiving, something to do with privacy, and I was really curious to hear more. So in today's mini not so critical update, here's Mike.
This is a special bonus episode beyond what we normally do because this story is so important.
Yeah.
Well, so to me, completely unsurprising. And I told you before about how, you and I, Peter, have these debates about privacy and it's about education and people just don't know or they wouldn't take these risks. And it's really worth so much more to people to see these things. I totally lost my train of thought there.
Sorry.
So I asked my wife, and this is before, weeks ago, months ago. Is it like, people are tracking you online, right? Oh yeah, I know we're probably being listened to by the NSA right now on our phones. Like we kind of it's only half joking, right? Like they probably actually are. It wouldn't surprise me in any way. But we recognize that we get the benefit of having these devices, and that's the trade-off we might make. And I said on a last episode, if we were talking about money, we wouldn't be giving it away, but we're not. We're talking about information and we don't value that as much. So we're willing to trade that for services. So at Thanksgiving, I had my cousin, my brother-in-law, I guess two cousins, all my same age, not IT guys. So like I have a tech background. They're, healthcare, service, retail, smart guys, same conversation. Like, because you and I, Peter, have these conversations all the time. So I said, hey, look, you guys, that you're being tracked everywhere you go online. Like, oh, yeah, absolutely. But you really know, like Google, Facebook, every website you go to, your information's being collected, it's being traded, you're being tracked everywhere you go. Oh, yeah, totally. And does that bother you? Well, I mean, I wish it wasn't happening, but everybody knows that it is. So what are you going to do? And this goes... So you, Peter, actually had said on an episode last week, because I said you have a choice. You don't have to do it. You said, well, you don't have a choice because if you want to order a refrigerator to be delivered overnight, you have to put your information in, which is totally true. But that's the deal you're making. You don't have to order a refrigerator overnight. You could get cash and go to a store and be completely untracked. What? That's the deal. That's the trade-off you're making.
The key takeaway for me from this story is how difficult it is to escape an echo chamber.
How do you mean? Like these are normal people that I'm talking to. I didn't prompt them or set them up for it. I just asked them, how do you feel about this?
But you did set them up. How are you okay with this?
It's not even that. It's just the fact that I think these are family members, and they're much more likely to be sharing an opinion. Also, there are partners of people there. You mentioned a brother-in-law, so this is one of your family who is much more likely to find someone who agrees with them in the first place. So there's a much higher likelihood that these people are going to have the same opinion or feel the same way as you do than in a random selection of people on the street. And I think that it's not even the random selection of people on the street. There's whole segments of society, especially people who are on minimum wage or under the poverty line or whatever, who really don't have a choice or are not as well informed as we are. We're like, are we middle class? I think we're middle class, right? Basically. So there's a certain escaping the echo chamber, actually getting unfiltered opinions is really hard. And I think that that's my takeaway from your story. Sorry, I'm sure you have great
family. Okay, I guess. I don't know. Like, everybody I have this conversation with says the same thing. So am I talking to people who are like me? Yeah, probably. But these are people who I would argue fit the category of people who you might say should be informed. They do pay attention to these things. They do know this is happening. It's not people who are like, oh, I'm buying this tracking watch for my kid. I don't know. What do I care? These are people who do know and do pay attention.
I'll give you one thing. The one thing I haven't accounted for in my argument is if these people who are unaware were informed, would they then still continue to make the same decisions you have? My complaint has always been, well, this is happening. The other people don't. But I suppose if the people you're talking to, or everyone else who you talk to, has said it's okay, then
I also think
I think a lot of people do.
No, I think the problem is you say this in a disconnected way where you say you're being tracked by like Google and Amazon and all of these companies, and they're like, yeah, of course, who isn't? But if you actually draw it out and you start really breaking it down and you say, no, I mean like every purchase you've ever made in the last 10 years, that's being packaged and sold.
Yeah.
That data is being packaged and sold. Not only the purchase itself, but also where you made the purchase and at what time.
And
right?
what can be figured out from all this stuff.
So do you both think that I am still naive about this, or that I have full grasp of really just how much tracking really happens? Regardless of how I feel about it, do you think I don't know that there's something I'm still missing about how bad you think this problem really is?
No, I think you're like probably one of the better informed people on the subject.
Because you use this data yourself.
So you assume that I'm such an anomaly that I don't represent anything about society?
No. The biggest problem I have with tracking is that there are a lot of situations where it is not cool. It's not good. And I think there should be a fundamental right to privacy. Not because it is always necessary, or not because in most of the cases it's evil, but because there are some cases where it's the same as innocent until proven guilty. It might be overwhelmingly obvious that someone has committed a crime. But if you don't have that principle of innocent until proven guilty, then you're going to get people unfairly convicted of things which are, before they've been actually convicted. It's the kind of basic right. And that's what I said to me. The people who've been abused, who have their medical data shared, or their sexual history is shared online inadvertently. The girl who was pregnant and her dad found out because of an ad from Target. The people who are trying to escape, authoritarian regimes are unable to go about their lives without having every movement tracked and their phone call history logged by the government. These kind of like things which are outside our scope of experience,
right?
Where privacy is really, really important, but it's just not stuff that happens to us or anybody I know personally. Well, as a
sure, but in those cases, it's being done by the government. Like, so what? I mean, you're saying regulate it, whatever.
Well, you limit the technology the government is using or licensing.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
I don't think it should.
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
like, do I love that the NSA almost certainly is, but absolutely has the capability to like record and apply AI to every video camera and audio, like phone call recording that they can get, and use that information to, track people down or prosecute them or whatever. Like, yeah, that's kind of scary, but so what?
Well, it's an interesting story, and thank you for sharing, Mike. But I think this is not something that we're going to come to a conclusion in the next ever.
No, so, I think you just I think you underestimate how close to the general population I actually am.
No.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I'm going to see my family on Sunday. It's going to be a table of 10.
Yeah,
I'll do the same survey.
And be as biased as you want.
I'll give you a counter example, right? I've been running a block list for more than 20 years, right? Which is specifically to do with ad servers and tracking servers on the internet. My partner worked in a shop, and she knew all about my list. And because I'm interested in it, I have been going on about it for a very long time. But so it's not like she was unaware of this, and she was fine with it. But like Mike said, one day she went into work and she got access to the website and was able to see exactly what was being tracked by people. and what the results of that tracking were. And she was like, she came home shocked and said, "Oh my God, I can see where people were clicking. I can see where they were hovering their mouse and what they were looking at and how long they were looking at it for." And it was really like shocking to her. And after that, she's installed eBlock Origin and all sorts of,
which
like
is totally reasonable. I think the other thing I'd say, and I know you're trying to wrap up, is there's a vast difference between.
You're the one that normally keeps trying to wrap up.
Oh, I thought you sounded like you were headed in that direction.
Well, I kind of was trying to do you a
wrap up.
favor. This is only meant to be a mini one.
No, I'll go forever.
Oh, okay. All right. My story. Okay.
No, not another story. There's a difference between stated preferences and revealed preferences. Everybody will say they don't want to be tracked. Most people will not take the steps necessary to not be tracked. Will I install an ad blocker, and will I be a little bit careful about how much information I share? Sure. But I want the benefit of having a refrigerator delivered to my house overnight. I want the benefit of email. I want the benefit of social media. So I make that deal. And you could say I'm uninformed. You could say whatever, but I make that deal.
You can turn that argument right back around at you, mate. You can say, well, everybody will say they don't mind being tracked because they know what's going on. But
nobody says they don't mind
exactly, it. You're just saying that you're okay. Not.
I say
everybody will say they accept the tracking as a necessary evil because they're happy with the services they get as a result. But when you really dig into it, I mean, their stated preferences, they're okay with it, right?
We have evidence of this all over society. The problem with obesity is not that people don't know what to eat. It's that they won't do it. The problem with any of these things isn't that people don't know what to do or they don't know there are negative consequences. Everybody knows there are negative consequences to these things. They do them anyway because that's what they want to do.
Yeah, that's true. I smoke.
All right.
Okay. All right.
I'm sure it'll come up again.
Maybe.
For sure.
Maybe. Thanks for listening, guys.
Hopefully it was interesting.